Oh yeah, back in the lead.
My name's Brandon and this is Cartoon Network Video Game History, a show where I take a look back on all of the video games based on Cartoon Network franchises and retrospectively review them. This week we're taking a look at the first ever game based on Ben 10. Ben 10 debuted on Cartoon Network in 2005 and was created by Man of Action Studios. This was their first production, but they'd go on to produce Generator Rex and Big Hero 6 the series. Ben 10 quickly rose to huge popularity, so much so that it's arguably Cartoon Network's most successful show to date. It spawned 3 sequel series, 4 feature-length films, 2 of which were live action, and has grossed over $6 billion in retail sales. It comes as no surprise that Cartoon Network rebooted the show in 2016. Ben 10 Protector of Earth was the franchise's very first foray into the video game space, but definitely wouldn't be the last. It was released on October 30, 2007 for the PlayStation 2, Nintendo Wii, and for the first time ever the PSP. I find it a little strange that this game came out in late 2007, yet it wasn't released for the PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360. Those consoles had been out for 1 and 2 years respectively at this point, so it's strange they choose to ignore them. The PS2, PSP and Wii versions of the game are basically identical. These were developed by High Voltage Software, who we've encountered a couple of times already. They previously developed codenamed Kids Next Door Operation Video Game, as well as The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Operation Video Game was solid, but Grim Adventures is my favourite Cartoon Network game so far, and it's just a legitimately good game by any standard. High Voltage Software would go on to produce some more Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon video games before being brought back to make Ben 10 Omniverse 2 in 2013. There's also a Nintendo DS version of the game that was developed by First Playable Productions. They don't have a Wikipedia page, but a Google search brings up their website which states that they make educational games now. They also developed several other DS ports of Ben 10 games. The DS version is a side-scrolling 2.5D beat-em-up where players control the Omnitrix via the touchscreen. For this review though, I'll be playing the PS2 version of Ben 10 Protector of Earth. Across the different versions, minus the DS, the average review score is roughly around the 6 out of 10 mark. This makes it the second highest rated Ben 10 game after Ben 10 Alien Force Vilgax Attacks. With my favourite Cartoon Network developer behind this, I'm excited to jump in. Surely they wouldn't let me down. Much like the Nintendo DS version, the console version of Ben 10 Protector of Earth is a beat-em-up. However, what sets it apart from your run-of-the-mill game in this genre is Ben's different alien forms. For those unfamiliar with Ben 10, Ben Tennyson finds an alien watch that attaches itself to him and allows him to transform into different aliens. Ben has a plethora of aliens that he can transform into in the show, but you're limited to just 5 here. Players will take control of Forearms, Heat Blast, Accelerate, Cannonbolt, and Wildvine. This is a little disappointing. Of the 23 aliens Ben uses during the original series, only 5 are present here. Due to when the game was in development, I'm sure some of those hadn't been introduced yet, but surely the original slate of 10 could appear here. Characters like Wild Mutt, Diamond Head, Grey Matter, and Stinkfly being left out would have to be a huge bummer to any Ben 10 fan who bought this at the time. They do give a story reason for why Ben can only use 5 aliens, which I appreciated, but it's still a little annoying. Gameplay here is pretty standard beat-em-up fare. You'll be fighting your way through waves of enemies, start to finish in level after level. This easily has the potential to become old or repetitive very quickly, but as I mentioned, the aliens really help out. Initially, you only start it with Forearms and Heat Blast to help you familiarise yourself with the controls and switching between aliens. The L2 and R2 buttons scroll through the list of aliens on your Omnitrix, and pressing R1 or R3 will make you transform. At first you'll have to transform back to Ben before transforming into a different alien, but throughout the game you'll upgrade your Omnitrix, allowing you to switch on the fly. Square will dish out a light attack, while Triangle is a heavy attack. Circle controls what the game calls a special attack, but it's more appropriate to say it's a charged attack. These are all neat on their own and offer quite a lot of variety when it comes to combat. It doesn't end there though, because each of these attacks can be combined into combos to pull off completely new moves. The combo list in this game is absolutely mind-boggling. During the game, you'll collect yellow orbs from defeating enemies, which fills up a meter. Once this meter fills, you're allowed to unlock a new combo for a character. The combo list is so extensive that I only unlocked all of them for a single alien. I also enjoyed that you get to choose which alien gets the new combo. This adds an extra layer to the combat, and it means you can beef up the specific aliens you like using. For example, I used Accelerate and Cannonbolt the most, so I focused my upgrades mostly on them. One of the most important things that High Voltage Software nailed here is the unique feel of every single alien. Each one feels extremely different than one another, yet they're all still satisfying to use. Even when you're just running around, the differences are there. Accelerate skates around at his fast pace, Cannonbolt rolls around in a ball, and Wildvine scutters around on his many legs. This doesn't add anything to the actual gameplay, but it helps make you feel like you're playing distinct characters. The actual combat gives you this distinct feeling too. Not once during my 4 hours of this game did it ever feel like any two of these aliens were even remotely similar. The zippy combat of Accelerate was radically different from the intense strength of Forearms, which was also different compared to the ranged swings of Wildvine. Not only does this give each alien their proper characteristics, but because they drip feed you new aliens, it always freshens up the combat well before it has a chance to get stale. One of my favourite examples of the devs nailing the character of the aliens is in Accelerate's special attack. You hold down circle, draw out a path on the field, and then he zips through that course with lightning speed, knocking down anything in its path. This was genuinely one of the most satisfying combat moves I've ever felt in a video game. It's little things like that which help make you feel like you're literally playing an episode of the show. Each alien just plays exactly like you'd imagine them. Like, if before this game I tried to think about what Cannonbolt or Heat Blast would play like in a game, the way they play in Protector of Earth would match it perfectly. Each alien also has special abilities that can be used outside of combat to solve some traversal puzzles. Whether it's using Forearms strength to activate pressure plate switches, swinging from vines with Wildvine, or putting out fires with Heat Blast, you'll constantly be using your special abilities outside of just fighting. This really shines once you have all 5 aliens and are made to use each ability throughout levels. You're really prevented from just sticking to one alien the entire time. This could be annoying, but because every character is so finely tuned, I liked it because it forced me to not just stick with what I favoured the most. Switching to solve these puzzles is also a million times more convenient than in Code Lyoko Get Ready to Virtualize, so that's an automatic plus. The worst part about these puzzles is just how easy they are to solve. Either Gwen or Grandpa Max will immediately chime in and tell you which alien to use to solve the puzzle. When I say immediately, I mean immediately. You don't even get a chance to solve the puzzle on your own. I get that they were targeting kids with this, but they make it insultingly easy. Surely they could have waited at least 30 seconds before just blatantly giving away the solution. Outside of these specific situations, I thought the difficulty level was actually spot on. On normal, the game wasn't an absolute pushover, but it wasn't punishing either. I think a lot of this is a credit to the alien mechanic. You see, when you're an alien and have your health bar depleted, you revert back to Ben instead of dying. If you lose all of your health as Ben, you then have to restart at a checkpoint. Having the game function like this means you die way less frequently and actually creates some really tense moments as you frantically dodge around as Ben until your Omnitrix recharges and you can become an alien again. It also doesn't hurt that you can easily find health pickups if you want to. Many of the objects in levels are destructible and will often drop some sort of pickup. The red ones refill your health, while the green allows you to stay in your alien form for longer, as your Omnitrix slowly loses charge after you use attacks. Outside of those, you'll also find 3 Sumo Slammer cards per level. These unlock inconsequential extras like cinematics and concept art back at the main menu. With Protector of Earth being such a combat-heavy game, it'll come as no surprise that boss battles play a significant part here. During the course of the story, you'll face off against memorable villains such as Enoch, Kevin 11, and Vilgax, and for the most part, these are quite good. At the end of each boss fight, you'll get a simple quick-time sequence that results in a big final cinematic blow. There are a few instances where the boss battles really let the game down though. The first 2 boss battles are against giant mechs. These battles are basically identical to one another and just completely suck. They're so slow and take an eternity to defeat, which is quite annoying considering how basic and bland they are to fight. My biggest issue with the entire game though is the final boss fight with Vilgax. This is the villain for the Ben 10 series, and the big climatic fight just ends in the worst way. It's incredibly frustrating, and it's honestly less about fighting Vilgax and more about flipping switches and interacting with the environment in not very interesting ways. Speaking of the story, it's a relatively bare-bones approach here. Ben wakes up one day to find that his Omnitrix isn't working right thanks to some deviousness while he was sleeping. The plot then reveals itself to be one of those typical, all of the iconic enemies are working together in some way type stories that a lot of video games based on pre-existing franchises use. While it's nothing unique or special, it is fun to go up against notable villains from the show, and the constant switching of villains also switches up the enemies you face. There are so many enemy types here, which again makes the combat constantly feel fresh. The story keeps the road trip feel of the show as you crisscross America multiple times. The levels you go to are extremely well designed and they use a lot of interesting locations here. Stages will take place at Area 51, Mount Rushmore, Yellowstone National Park, and the Lincoln Memorial. These are just the famous locations though. Even locations like the Bayou are awesome to play through. Much like Ben's aliens and the enemy types, the stages are all so radically different from one another that the game doesn't get a chance to feel repetitive. Unfortunately, it's not all positives for Ben 10 Protector of Earth. As I've found to be the case in a lot of console Cartoon Network games, the 2D characters being turned into 3D can be a little jarring. This is fine in actual gameplay, but in cutscenes, things look a little ugly. Overall, I think this game is a bit of a disappointment on the graphics side of things, especially when you consider this game came out in 2007. This is a year where we got Bioshock, Super Mario Galaxy, and Uncharted Drake's Fortune, games that looked incredible. While I'm not expecting that level of quality from a Ben 10 game, I was expecting more than something that felt like a very early PS2 game. Developers were really pushing the PS2 to its limits in the final days, but this feels like it plays it very safe. While I did enjoy the combat from start to finish, I must admit there were times that it felt a little clunky. There were occasional frustrating moments that acted as timely reminders that I was playing Ben 10 Protector of Earth rather than Batman Arkham Asylum. Fortunately, the combat is a joy for the most part, and I never had any serious issues.
Get ready for Ben 10, Protector of Earth, the video game. Battle the dreaded Vilgax and other futuristic foes as Ben, or your favorite super cool alien hero. The Earth is in danger. Can you save it? Ben 10, Protector of Earth video games. Rated everyone 10 and up.
High Voltage Software has done it again. This is another really well-made Cartoon Network game for consoles, and they've really established themselves as the most competent developer in this series. They nail the essence of Ben 10 with the way they make all of the aliens feel distinct, and like all good games based on a franchise, it feels like it was made by fans of the show, for fans of the show. I honestly could have done with this game being twice as long. Protector of Earth is a 4-hour romp, so extending that to 8 hours by adding in 5 more aliens would have been fine by me. However, based on the story here, I get the feeling that other aliens might have been left out because they didn't have a long enough narrative to fit them all in. Every alien gets the proper time to shine here, so if they added more in without being able to extend the game's length, a number of them would have fallen to the wayside. The key to making a good game in the beat-em-up genre is having enjoyable combat that doesn't get repetitive or boring. Ben 10 Protector of Earth passes that test with flying colours. While it's not quite better than Grim Adventures, it certainly comes close. This game ends on a post-credit scene with Vilgax vowing to return, and he would eventually reappear in Vilgax Attacks, the third game in the series. But, as I mentioned, High Voltage Software wouldn't return to the Ben 10 series until the final game before the show was rebooted. This is a shame, as they've made a solid platform that they really could have built off of here. The Harvey Birdman and Secret Saturdays games are the only other Cartoon Network games they develop, so I look forward to them eagerly to see if they can continue this hot streak.